within this great and amazing setting. The courts are paramount, and the survey results prove that out. So there's a great opportunity to upgrade the court complexes, which include basketball, but also tennis in a way that's extremely meaningful and compelling. We want to unify park entrances. This is a great asset. It should be a bit of a celebration when one enters a park and open space asset just like this. And we want to make it clear and obvious where people can enter the park and exit the park. So we think that's work that can be done in that regard. Enhancing the gathering spaces, capabilities of the property. Managing the mature tree canopy, because it's significant, it's amazing, and yet it creates a few complications relative to safety and comfort of patrons at certain times of the day. Really listen well about safety concerns. We want this place, when it's open, to be welcoming and safe and comfortable and attractive for people who live in the surrounding neighborhood. And really strengthen the connection of the park to community. Younger folks in particular that are coming of age now are the next generation of stakeholders at Malcolm X. We want to connect with them, and we want them to be the caretakers and the defenders and the protectors of Malcolm X Park landscape as the next generations begin to play out. And clearly, even in the face of COVID-19, we're focused on meaningful community interaction throughout the process. So initial thoughts and goals, updating the playground. Forgive me, did the slide move? Lauren, have you passed that baton to me?
I have, but it's still on the initial thoughts and goals.
Okay. Bear with me. Everyone can tell I'm a relative novice at this. I'm much more comfortable in a setting.
Now we see the initial survey results.
Face to face. So thank you for that. Yes, a couple of really interesting things that have come out. First and foremost, 654 people have responded. That's amazing. After a few weeks, we were off to a bit of a slow start, and we had maybe 50 or 60, but in the last couple of weeks, many hundreds of people have responded, and it's been awesome. It's been inspiring. The survey's been made available in multiple languages. The top 5 things that we're hearing about, probably not surprises, and I've already touched on them a little bit.
Dean, can I just jump in 1 second real quick? Sorry to interrupt. Just as a reminder to people, on that gray bar on the left-hand side, there is a plus and minus arrow in the magnifying glass. This is a good slide if you want to be able to see everything down here at the bottom a little bit bigger. It might be a good slide to try that zooming in and out function. Sorry, Jean.
No trouble. So this really relates to what I spoke to just a couple of moments ago. What's really important as far as the most desired park amenities, and that's probably on an existing basis and on a going forward basis, and that's the basketball, and it's the children's playground. But then it's those ancillary support elements that help to make one's visit to a park enjoyable and memorable and comfortable. So people talk about night lighting, they talk about the convenience of trash receptacles, benches, they talk about trees and shade. In this moment of climate change also being a challenge, it's important to allow people good opportunities to get out from underneath the hot sun in those months that we most enjoy our park and open space assets. A couple of other notes. Heartening to understand that 30% of the respondents, which is clearly a couple of hundred people, visit the park on a daily basis. And then 36% of respondents visit at least weekly. So what does that really mean? It's reinforcing what we've seen, but probably even reinforcing it more than what we've been able to witness so far, because early spring, COVID-19 have impacted the attendance in the park. But clearly, on a given day, there are many hundreds of people from within the surrounding neighborhood that are enjoying Malcolm X Park landscape. No surprise, more than half of the people that responded arrive on foot. Arriving by car is an option, and these numbers are not mutually exclusive, so they add up to more than 100%. Some people might arrive at the park by walking one day. They might take a car another day for a different reason. And there is some parking in the form of an on-site parking lot off of Dale Street, and the significant parallel parking that's on Martin Luther King Boulevard as well. There's also parking during the summer season at the adjacent school property. And also people arrive on bicycle, and I think that's in sync with the mayor's initiative to make streets more bicycle friendly. And we'd love to see that percentage of people arriving by bicycle increase in the years ahead of us. So most beloved features, special events, walking, running, commuting, people watching, sitting on a bench, playing basketball, playing at the playground, bringing visitors, picnicking. A lot of these pursuits are not just basketball and not just playground. And it's important to remember that so many passive recreation opportunities are offered at Malcolm X Park, and people take advantage of those opportunities. Lots of people enter from the MLK Boulevard side of the park, probably not much of a surprise there either. Another interesting item, and maybe not too surprising, 92% of respondents are familiar with Malcolm X's connection to the park that is named for him. 90% are interested in seeing increased recognition of Malcolm X at the park. And we're anxious to work with people to define logical ways to make more obvious reference to this connection between Malcolm X and the park setting. 73% of people are interested in on-site workshop. Well, I can tell you that everybody on the panel, 100% are interested in doing that. But we'll simply have to play it by ear. We'll have to take our cues from elected officials at the city level and at the state level to understand when we can return to in-person interactions. Age of respondents, the sweet spot here was 19 to 39. This is an age group that's really critical for the future of parks and open space. This is the next generation of custodians of this great and amazing place. It's kids 18, 19, 20 that are coming of age. It's people that are starting families, and it's important to recognize. There's also folks in the older set that are responding, and I think that's great and encouraging and speaks to the goal of making the park as multi-generational and as accessible as possible. How did you find out about the survey? Despite what Lauren recorded earlier for results, social media. We're all coming to learn the importance of social media and getting the word out for events like this and other really critical and important events in our community. So a little bit about the site, and then I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Mike, who will bring us towards the finish line with Lauren. Everybody knows this property. It's clear. I bet that everybody on this interaction probably knows this property in a way that's more intimate than we do, and our job is to get to know it pretty darn well. But it's a great and amazing site. It's about 10 acres that are highlighted here that we have an opportunity to work with in particular. The ball field encompasses about 4 acres. You can see that it's up in the upper left in this image. The rendered in areas in green, lighter green, and purple are those parts of the park that we're particularly interested in at this moment in time. And they're very clearly and easily defined as the large woodland, upland landscape zone that's green, that's at the north or top of the diagram. The purple area that consists of the children's playground and the splash pad, and then the court complexes along MLK Boulevard. That includes the tennis courts and the basketball courts. In regard to the undeveloped area, there are a series of pathways, there are benches, there are lighting systems, there are entrances that allow you in from Dale Street, from the field complex, from the school property, from Walnut Street, and from MLK Boulevard. And there are sections of really steep terrain. Everything in red is not presently handicapped accessible. If we want this to be a fully inclusive site, if we want it to be attractive from a multi-generational standpoint, we certainly want to be able to affect that and make some improvements relative to the gradients of some of the pathways that traverse the property. So now I'm going to hand it back over to Zoe for a minute, and forgive me, I misspoke a second ago, and then in fact, she'll hand the ball off to Mike Giesler. Zoe?
Thanks, Gene. So I'm just going to draw attention to a few environmental site conditions to consider, namely features that increase the stormwater runoff and contribute to flooding not only in the park, but also in the surrounding areas. So the compact soil where it's difficult for water to penetrate impervious surface like the paved areas. So for this site, considering impervious pavement options potentially. And then the overall drainage of stormwater, so considering where it drains off to in intense rains. And then another significant site feature is a full and mature tree canopy. And some of these obvious benefits for having such a gorgeous canopy is the provision of shade and reducing high temperatures. And just considering some of these site conditions together, there's potential opportunity to design an integrated system for both managing stormwater as well as helping with tree care. And now I'm going to hand it over to Mike.
Thank you, Zoe. And Jean's passed me the ball, so perfect. I think we've covered the basics of what we see here, and the park naturally kind of aggregates into these four categories that we see as designers. There's this active recreation zone along MLK Junior Boulevard. There's the playground and splash pad zone, and this large passive recreation zone. And then the other key feature that we see that stuck out immediately to us when we were there was the need for a sense of arrival and entry when you reach MLK entrances. We see all these four key areas as ways to look at the park, to improve the park. But we also want to hear from you, and I think the next step is to take a minute here and to really hear from everyone who is able to take the next survey what you feel is the most important section of Malcolm X Park. Is it the children's playground and the splash pad at the top at Walnut? Is it the active recreation facilities, including the basketball and tennis courts? Is it the passive area, which almost seems like a slice of Franklin Park, just moved a little bit? Or is it the relationship to Malcolm X and the greater Roxbury community, really that kind of connection between park and community, both physically at the entrances and more metaphorically between the site and the community? I think we'll give it a few more seconds, make sure everyone has a chance to answer. And again, if you are listening in by phone, I'm sorry that you can't take the poll right away, but Lauren will again give you her information at the end of the presentation, so you can give your thoughts to her afterwards by phone, or you can take the survey online. That will be open until at least June 30th. Looks like a pretty even distribution. 5 of the participants thought children's playground is the most important. 3 felt active recreation was the most important. 7 felt the passive recreation area was the most important. And 5 felt the relationship of Malcolm X was the most important, which is good. Everything seems to be important in this park because everything should be important in this park. There's a lot of opportunity within each of these spaces, and we're going to do the best we can to find a way to bring out the opportunities that each has within them. The first key improvement zone that we're going to talk about is the playground and splash pad. And just to state as simply as we can, we see this as a very underwhelming play space in a very unique and beautiful location within the park. It's an opportunity to provide a a lot more than is currently here. It's a space that could be equally accessible and amazing for children of all ages and all abilities, and we could provide much better connections to the surrounding community, through physical connections to Walnut Street and Martin Luther King, as well as the schools, and to the rest of the park. There's too much unused space. There's a lack of connection to the natural rock outcroppings, not enough shade. In a park that has so many mature trees, the place must be very warm in the summertime. I haven't been out there yet in the summer, but yes. And there's a serious lack of ADA access for a lot of this, and that's something that can easily be improved upon, and we can even push it beyond just simple ADA access to inclusive design, where all children of all abilities can feel much more accepted into the space. There's also kind of the themes that work out throughout the park, which is things like lack of adequate lighting, a sense of comfort, and a lack of seating for parents and families. Just to give you some examples, these are other parks in Boston and the surrounding areas. You can see some of these playground areas really do a good job of using or creating topography as a play element to be used within the space. We're looking at much more modern structures, as well as much more exploratory play, where children get to choose their own way to play on the space or within the space and on the equipment. It's not the 20, 30 years ago post and platform system where there was one way to play, which was climb up, slide down, or climb up, jump off. There's also a large movement towards more naturalized play, which can be done within cities. And here you see some opportunities and options to bring in more natural materials. You see acacia wood, and you see the mixing of accessible surfacing with other materials and things like balance beams and logs. So if this is something that interests you, we'd like to hear about that in the Q&A section. The other component of the play area is the splash pad, and the splash pad that is out there is dated and underwhelming. The only thing that is very unique out there are the tiles that were obviously made by a classroom or a school, and we're still looking for information on that. So as a side note to this, if you can provide any more information on who designed all those tiles and if those are worth saving, what the interest in the community is, we'd love to hear more about them. Splash pads today range in a lot of interest, and this is something that can be very unique. You can have large events with little water, so you're not wasting a ton of water, but you still have this opportunity for exploration and play. And again, in the same same way as the playgrounds, you have the ability to have access for all throughout these spaces. With that very brief overview of what could be there, I'd like to hear from the community that's on right now. What is most important to you within the playground? Is it the 2 to 12 play space? Is it the splash pad? Is it more seating and more shade for caregivers? Is it better access from park adjacencies? Is it more colorful and imaginative play features? Is it more community involvement in design elements such as the ceramic tiles or future murals or custom design pieces? You can choose all that apply here. You don't have to only pick one. And we'll let this go for another 20, 30 seconds. Again, we've got a very well-balanced mix of interests. It looks like the most important items ended up being the 2 to 12-year-old play area, more seating, diverse, colorful, and interesting play, and community involvement. But there was also a lot of interest in splash pad and better access. So we'll make sure that we use this as a jumping off point in our designs. And as we move forward in the next community outreach meetings, we'll start to develop designs for more community feedback. So this isn't the only time we'll be talking about this. This is just to get an initial idea of where the community would like to go. The next key improvement zone is the active recreation area. And again, this is the tennis courts and the basketball courts. And it's obvious when you're out on site that they are well loved and well used spaces, but they're obviously also very well worn. And they definitely need to be more well integrated into the space. You know, there's a chance here to integrate them into the fabric of the park and not isolate them as they currently are, and keep them so separated from both the street and from the park space. I think there's a chance to open them up in both directions. The steep hills are always going to be a challenge on site. There's always going to be a stepping between the courts. But how we integrate the spaces in between and how we connect them is going to be very important. Currently, there's no ADA access. There's poor court conditions and dilapidated sports lighting. And there needs to be better watching and gathering spaces near the courts. And there continues to be a lack of shade within this active area. It's almost a continuation of what was happening in the play space. Examples of what these courts could become. These are courts within Boston and the Northeast. Some of these are taken from New York City. And here, you know, there's a level of community involvement and interest, and knowing that Red Bull had come in and supported this really amazing tournament on site a few years ago, and seeing kind of the custom graphics that were out on the court. You know, a point of interest and a point of discussion that we'd like to have in future meetings is, do we want to see something more than your standard red and green court painting and surfacing? Do we want to do something more interesting? There's a chance for community involvement or artist involvement. And yeah, I mean, we're going to be involving all of these factors, and it's not just you know, what's the most popular right now, but we'll make sure that all of this is incorporated from these comments. Again, as our next polling question, what would you like to see? Is it most important to see more spectator seating or better access between the courts? Are the lighting improvements most important, or is tournament and event support infrastructure more important? Scoreboards, bleachers, seating, things like that. Is it something more practical like equipment storage, or is it larger community programming on the site, on the spaces? Or is it something as interesting as multi-sport striping, looking at putting in something like the ability to play volleyball or pickleball or futsal on some of these courts?
And Mike, I just wanted to jump in really quickly. There was a comment in the chat that said that the poll had closed too quickly previously and that people needed a little bit more time. So I did add another minute to this poll, and we'll see if that helps out for this one and future ones.
Okay. Sorry about that, guys. And again, any comments that are missed here, we can bring up in the Q&A section afterwards. And these aren't the be-all, end-all. We're not going to design only based on what comes in on these polls, but it just gives us a feel for things.
And since we have a few minutes, it also gives us a chance to let you guys be a part of this conversation a little bit more before that Q&A, because we hate not being able to interact in the way these are set up. So it makes us feel like we're at least being able to interact a little bit with all of you as you're giving us these thoughts throughout the presentation.
All right. From the poll, and again, just to make clear one more time, this is not going to be the driving force behind the design. This is just some input that we can take during this presentation right now. More spectator seating and more design for tournament and event support infrastructure were the two largest, with lighting improvements as the second most important. But we had answers on almost everything except for equipment storage. Then there were a few people that answered for equipment storage as well. But the biggest items that we're hearing from right now is spectator seating, tournament and event seating, and lighting improvements. The next key improvement zone was the passive recreation zone. And for everyone who's been out there, this is already an excellent space for calm, relaxation, and recreation. But it's dated, it's inaccessible. As Jean mentioned earlier, some of these paths are in excess of 10% slope. It's worn and it's over-engineered, and at times it's unsafe. During the day, on a nice sunny day, it can feel comfortable out there despite some of these drawbacks. But in the evening and winter time, with icy slopes, I'm sure it's a much less comfortable space to be in. So this is a place where working with the natural beauty that's out there and trying to repair and improve some of the original layout of these connection spaces and creating small gathering spaces and seating and benches along the way can be important. Some of the pros, you have these extremely unique footing stone outcroppings and retaining walls. As Zoe mentioned, there's a mature and varied tree canopy and there's excellent view sheds due to the extreme topography of the site. But the cons, there's a lack of accessible paths. The overly engineered drainage is something that we need to address. It's actually a safety issue at times. And lighting upgrades needs to be created for a safe and comfortable setting. That's what we feel, at least. We're going to jump right next in. Oh, no, I'm going to show a couple of examples. Excuse me. Some other park spaces in Boston and the area that you can see here where different settings and different materials are used to create a more natural space within these mature tree canopies, as well as in some more urban spaces along edges. As one example, the far right is Children's Park in Roxbury. Even in a small space there, you get a natural feeling right next to a play area. And so here's a chance where we can remove some of the overly engineered feeling and create something a little more enjoyable within that space. So, excuse me, here's the poll. So what improvements are most needed within this recreation space? Do you feel it's the formalized overlook areas, creating access to those overlooks as a place to go? Is it improved landscaping throughout? Is it improving the pathways or creating more user-friendly and accessible benches? Is it night lighting and emergency call boxes for safety? Or is it trash receptacles and maintenance concerns?
Since we added a minute to the poll, I just thought it might be a good chance to jump in. Just so you know, these aren't the only things that we're going to be looking at in terms of what improvements are needed. So if there's something here or something not here that you feel like is an improvement that is really needed at the park, we can definitely add that in the Q&A session, or again, feel free to call or email me as well to put those, to put that information out there too.
All right. We got a very even facing in response here. The biggest items were night lighting and trash receptacles, which really follows up from what we saw from the online survey. And the next ones down were user-friendly and accessible benches and seating, and improved landscaping and meandering paths. All right. Again, we will be addressing this again in the question and answer section at the end, as well as in our next meetings. So we'll move on to the next key improvement zone, which is the entrances. Here is an amazing opportunity to create a sense of arrival, place, and reflect the community surrounding the park further, while making this park more accessible to all. Right now, only 4 of the 9, I believe, entrances are in any way accessible for anyone with any mobility concerns, and none of them offer a sense of arrival. Most of them are just a break-in offense and a couple of bollards to stop vehicles. And here's a huge opportunity to say to anyone coming to the park, here you are. Here's a chance to step out of the street and into a space to play, to relax, to enjoy. Most of these entrances are not ADA. They lack the visibility and a compelling sense of arrival. And they lack direct access to the most important components. You can't get to the playground from Martin Luther King or Walnut. You can't get to the courts directly from Martin Luther King. You have to walk around. And most of the accessible pathways through the site only go so far before they hit unaccessible access ways. So there's no entrance to entrance cut through the park. So there's the connectivity from entrances is just as important as these entrances. And here's also an opportunity to create a unique sense of place. This is Malcolm X Park. When you arrive at Malcolm X Park, you're not just arriving at any park. Some examples of other parks around Boston and the area. Harambe Park, you have this amazing old stone wall that's had this new entrance sign added to it. It's a little old, a little bit of new. Other parks include these kind of traditional, wrought iron gates with the openings where it's much more of a sense of arrival. You can do something more natural. Buzzards Bay Park, which is obviously not in the Boston area. Here we worked with natural stone to create something that just says, you're stepping off the street and you're moving into something that is much more of a space outside of the street life. And while none of these are the correct answer to the entrances at Malcolm X Park, we need to create something that is unique to Malcolm X Park in the design. With that, I'm going to turn the program back to Lauren, and she's going to finish it up.
Hey, everybody, I'm just getting this last poll launched. So we have one final poll, and it does have 3 separate questions. So we've given a little bit more time to respond to them. So this first question is really, what is Malcolm X Park to you? Choose all that apply. Is it the heart of the community, your kids' playground, a part of your daily routine, where I go to play basketball, tennis, baseball, soccer? It's my community's event space, and it's my favorite park in Boston. So those are just some of the things we'd like to hear. What is Malcolm X Park to you? And the poll will stay up even though I'm switching the slides. The second question is, what should Malcolm X Park be? And again, you can check as many as you would like. Should it be a place to offer daily outdoor escape and relaxation? A place that's family and age friendly for residents and visitors? A place that's flexible to host community gatherings? Should it be a celebrated beacon for the people of Roxbury and the surrounding neighborhood? And then the third question is, what should the improvements include? And again, just because there's not an answer on here, if there are other things that you think it should include, by all means, please let us know. Send an information in the Q&A, or go ahead and send me an email as well, and we'll go back over my email address in a few minutes. But what should it include? Should it include improved seating, like benches, cafe tables, team benches, bleachers for some of the tournaments that we know happen at the park? Should it include recognition of Malcolm X? I know that that was a fairly resounding yes in the survey. Just want to know what everyone who came to the meeting feels about that as well. Should it include amenities to support a variety of uses, like bike racks, shade shelters, fitness equipment? I know that that's something that people tend to request a lot. Drinking fountains, trash receptacles. I did see that there was a comment that came up in the chat about potential dog areas as well. So that's something that we can think through, even though it wasn't on this survey or this poll in particular. Better lighting is something that we're wondering if you think we should include. And more shade and natural landscape features is something else. Again, looking to some of those climate resiliency items that Zoe talked a lot about earlier in the presentation as well. And we've got about another minute to have this poll open. If it looks like people are pretty well done and I don't see any more answers coming in, I may go ahead and close that poll a little early. Just wanted to give people extra time since there were 3 questions. Doesn't look like any more are coming in, so I'm going to go ahead and close that early, and then in a couple seconds I'll be able to share those results with you all. And Mike, I know it pops up on yours to be able to see those results. Because I'm the host, it won't let me. Do you mind opening those up and sharing with everybody, or reviewing them? Thank you.
Absolutely. For question number 1, Malcolm X Park is most definitely the heart of the community, with 16 answers for that one. It's also the community's event space and where I go to play with my children. Malcolm X Park should be very evenly split between all the answers, which is somewhat expected. But the one with the most responses is a celebrated beacon for the people of Roxbury and its surrounding neighborhood. And Malcolm X Park improvement should include, most importantly, improved seating, recognition of Malcolm X, and the number 1 answer was amenities to support a variety of uses. So bike rack, shade shelters, fitness equipment, drinking fountains, trash receptacles.
Thank you, Mike, for reviewing that with everybody. Just wanted to, let's see, really quickly, go on to the next slide. So we wanted to say thank you to you guys, and don't worry, I'm not putting this up here because we're not going to do Q&A. We absolutely are. I just know that not everybody can stick around through an entire Q&A, so I just wanted to make sure we got a little bit of information out there for those who may not stay through the whole thing. We wanted to say thank you for joining us, especially during this strange new format. I hope the meeting was helpful to you guys. And if for some reason we don't get to everybody's questions tonight when we go through those, I will follow up directly with you over the next few days. Or if you'd like to email me questions, if you can't stay, please do that. My email address is on the slide right now, lauren.bryant@boston.gov. I'm also going to post a video of this presentation, a PDF of the presentation, and also meeting minutes as soon as possible. But it'll probably take a couple of days. Also wanted to share this link here on the screen. If you guys want to write it down, if you haven't been there, that is our project webpage. It has information on here that recaps some of the things that we've talked about. That's where the video, the PDF, and the meeting minutes will be posted. It also has a link to our survey in case you have not had a chance to do that yet. Please feel free to share that with people. The survey is there in English, Spanish, Haitian Creole, and Somali. trying to make sure that we can really get thoughts from everyone in the community and don't want language to be a barrier for that. And again, my email address and phone number again if you have any questions. So now we're going to get to our Q&A session, and just wanted to remind everybody where you go to the ellipsis at the bottom where the Q&A is. I know a lot of people have found that. We also can have people use the hand raise function. Again, I'm going to go and see if any of the people who called in, because we do have quite a few people who called in, to see if they have any questions as well, since they've been patiently waiting and not being able to interact. Also, just wanted to do a quick kind of a group agreement on communication, just as a reminder to everyone. Unfortunately, as I'm sure everyone has heard in the news, people, including the Parks Department, have had some meetings where people maybe weren't being as nice and considerate and as they should have been, and were taking advantage of online meetings. So just want to remind everybody that we're all here to make a difference in the park. So let's all please be respectful and use respectful language. Share airtime so everybody gets a chance to be heard. If you disagree with something or someone, please consider asking a question rather than arguing to prove your point. Please speak for yourself and not for the group. We all share responsibility for making this conversation really productive. And most of all, let's listen to each other, because I think we can all learn a lot about all the different ideas that people have for this park. So that being said, I'm going to look over to the attendees really quickly who are on the phone and see if I can unmute a few of them to see if anyone has a question. So I don't know if, I'm not sure how to be able to tell if you are on the phone and have questions, please feel free to start speaking. I'm unmuting all the call-in people now. I feel like I might be getting a little bit of feedback.
Okay. Hello?
Hi.
The phones are unmuted?
Yes.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi. Do I have to identify myself?
If you could, that would be helpful.
Hello?
If you could identify yourself, that would be helpful.
Okay. My name is Alfreda Harris. Hello?
Hi, Alfreda Harris. Do you have a question for us?
Yes, I do. Lauren,
yes.
I know that you've given out your email, et cetera, et cetera. I do have some questions, and I also have some comments in regards to what was said this evening. And I do agree that there are some things we can really do in terms of improving Malcolm X Park. However, I just want to make sure that what I'm going to do, I'm going to put an email together for you.
Thank you.
And all I'm asking is that I do get a response, and I would like to have a meeting with Jessica Thomas and Sam Furtado around some other issues around Malcolm X Park. Not the design, but some other things. But I know how to get in touch with them, and I will do that. Also, I have one question. I don't know if you can answer this, because it's not really up your line. I think it's more or less for Paul McCaffrey. I know in the past and in other sections of the city, there has been some sections of a park that has been designated for youth. So I don't know if we have to do a petition or to the Parks Department or whatever. And I know you may not have that answer, but I want to throw that out because a lot of people have mentioned that, in particularly around the athletic field on Dale Street.
Okay.
And number one is light. And particularly in the parking lot on Dale Street.
Lauren, can I jump in real quick?
Yes, please do.
Hi, Miss Harris. It's Christine.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well. I'll be in touch with you too.
Yes, I was going to say, include me in that meeting with Sam, Samuel, and Jessica.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Sorry, just wanted
Good
to
night.
jump in real quick too. This is Jessica. I obviously live across the street, so I have seen, people have been reaching out about the fireworks and about people hanging out. So it's something that we're working on collectively. Yeah, but and I also called Diane I think yesterday and ended up talking to Warren. She was on the phone. But we are putting together. I'll definitely touch base with you after the meeting. I won't take up any time.
I'd appreciate that, and I'm sure the people in St. Joseph's would appreciate it also.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you, Ms. Harris.
Hello.
Okay, bye.
Hi.
Hello.
Who's this?
Hi, my name is Leah Christie, and I live in St. Joseph, and I have some real concerns about what Ms. Harris was just talking about. However, I would very much have liked to have seen the plans that you were talking about in the polls and things like that, but I don't know. Now, I've never gotten information about surveys. So I don't know where people got the notifications from that there were surveys that needed to be filled out and where they came from. And I would also like to find out how I would go about being able to view the things that you had up there rather than doing it through a phone call.
Absolutely. So
now,
this is
on Zoom or something, or how do I get into that?
Yeah, so this is on WebEx. Where did you hear about the meeting and find the call-in information?
Ms. Harris told me.
Okay, so what we're trying to do is, this is new for us too, so unfortunately I think there's going to be some growing pains. So it is a WebEx. It's sort of like Zoom, but just a different company. And there is a web link, kind of like a Zoom. What we did to try to get the word out, we actually mailed 600 postcards to residents within about 1,000 feet of the park. We put up yard signs in the park that had the information, email, social media. But if it sounds like we may not have your email address, so what I'd love, do you have email?
Yes, I do.
If you could email me at Lauren, Lauren, Bryant.
I took it down.
Oh, you took that down? If you can email me.
I didn't. Can you repeat it?
It's Lauren, Lauren .Bryant, BRYANT @boston.gov.
Yes.
And if anyone, whether you're on the phone or have logged in, if you did not get a personal email from me about the meeting, please go ahead and let me know, because I also, in addition to all the outreach that Christine does and in all the outreach that a lot of networks share, I like to personally send emails to people who were at the meetings. So please feel free to make sure I have your email address.
And I'll email you tomorrow, maybe later.
That would be great. And I'll make sure that you have the project website, because in a few days, this will be posted on the project website. So that way you can actually see the presentation and see all the slides we've been going through. And also the link to the survey in all 4 languages is also on that website. So I'll make sure you get that.
Okay, now will we, and also by going through your email, will we be updated as to when the next meeting will be?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So everybody that I ever get an email from or a phone call from with regards to Malcolm X, I have a pretty extensive spreadsheet. I love spreadsheets. And I have everybody in there. So whoever emails me from this meeting, I'll add them into that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay.
Absolutely. Anyone else on the phone?
Yes, this is Andrea Griswold. I also live at St. Joseph's.
Hi, Andrea.
Hi. How are you?
Good.
I also live in St. Joseph's, and we have a major issue with this parking lot area on Dale Street and the softball field.
Okay.
So I agree with Ms. Harris. We need to discuss that part of the park especially. And, of course, I agree with everyone else. We need a lot of lights.
Yes, a lot of lighting, yes. Absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, Lauren.
Hi,
this
Lauren.
is Diane Galloway. Shelburne.
Oh, yes. Hi,
Hello.
how are you?
I'm good, and yourself? I'm
Good,
going
thank
to email you so I can get that slide from the presentation and stuff. But you know, there's a few issues that we really need to discuss in regards to the park, especially during the renovation. Some of the issues that we're facing now, we don't want to have to face those issues with a brand new park.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Any and all thoughts and comments, we're happy to have them emailed my way. That's wonderful.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Hello.
Hi, how are you, sir?
Good. My name is Michael Fergus. I grew up in that area. I'm an architect. I currently work in the city of Boston. I pretty much have grown up using every aspect of that park. Winter, spring, summer, and fall. I skated there when they had hockey. I played there during the summer. I've skateboarded there. I played basketball there. I could probably walk that park blindfolded at night. So, and I'm also part of ULI, Urban Land Institute, actively in Boston. So I'm excited to be part of this process. I called several friends of mine from out of state who grew up all in the area who are still very much connected to Roxbury here. So we'll all be connected and participating and contributing to make this, to enhance the park, make it an incredible park. It's a magnificent jewel and resource for the community. So look forward to being part of the future conversation.
Oh, thank you. We look forward to having your comments. Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else on the phone who hadn't had a chance to chime in? Hi.
Hello. Hi. My name is Eleanor Williams. I live across from the park on Martin Luther King and Washington Street.
Yeah.
My question has to do with the trash. You know, like although there are trash bins, I noticed a lot of trash around the trash bins, you know, barrels.
Okay.
So, you know,
It's a softball
I saw
team.
that there was something that said, would you like more trash barrels? But I don't think that's necessarily the answer, although, yes, we could always use trash barrels. My concern is that as a homeowner across the street, I'm constantly having to pick up trash from, you know, folks who have been congregating over there at the park. I love that folks come together, and I don't want that to change, you know, but I'm just wondering about the city, you know, helping out the homes around here, you know, that are affected by all of that that's going on across the street on a regular.
Yes, that's how Dale Street side feels.
Can I ask a quick question about that? Eleanor, is it when the trash is surrounding the barrel, is the barrel full and so there's nowhere else to put it, or is there a problem of people just not caring enough to get it into the barrel? Because if it's a matter of increasing when barrels get emptied versus people not doing what they're supposed to, then it determines how I try to help solve the problem.
Well, it's both. It's
okay.
Both, and it's both. I've seen trash around a half empty barrel, you know. Okay. But then there's no barrel on our side. We have the grass, you know, like there's a sidewalk, there's our home, our property in terms of our yards, the sidewalk, and then the grass in between the, you know, pathway of the sidewalk and then the street. Cars will park there, and they'll throw it on the grass like it's a trash. You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't know what the city can do. I did call one time, and they actually were very good for part of the summer. Once I called them, they had the Parks and Recreational folks that clean that area. Mm-hmm. They were actually cleaning our side of the street.
Oh wow! Okay,
which was nice. Mm-hmm. So I'm just wondering if something like that can be considered in the plan when we think of bringing a whole lot of people, you know, or encouraging people to come over here, how it affects the homeowners and the keeping the area clean on our side, not just in the park.
On Dale Street, we have the same problem, but the barrels are empty. They're just not bothering to throw the trash in there. We have trash piled up to the top of the barrel, but the barrel's empty. Then you have 10 and 15 empty beer bottles and the beer cartons all over the place. And it's because of these people at night in the park.
So I just wanted to jump in. I'm sorry, it's Jessica again. So that's part of the reason why we have something called the 311 app. So you can either call 311 or you can download it to your phone. I usually do it when I do my walks around. If I see, something like trash or littering on the ground, you could take a picture of it and it gets uploaded to 311. And so once we have that, you also create a case number, which will be given to you, and they'll have someone come out and take care of it. So again, I actually live on Walnut Ave as well. I am very familiar with what you guys are talking about. The city does have 311, which is very helpful in addressing issues like that. Like I said, once you create that case and it gets sent up to City Hall, and they'll let either Public Works or whatever department is going to be helpful in that area, they'll come out and take care of it. So again, if you guys want to connect with me afterwards, feel free to reach out to me as well if you see things like that happening. Again, I see it myself, and it's something that we're actively working on. But for things like trash and litter, you can definitely reach out to 311 so that they can create a case and get it picked up.
Thank you, Jessica.
I'll jump in also. This is Christine speaking. I'm the outreach coordinator for the Parks Department. If 311 does not respond, you can always reach out to me also. I don't know if Lauren can put up my email or I can say it to whoever's on the phone. It's Christine, CHRISTINE .Brandao, BRANDAO @boston.gov. I can reach out to the maintenance and make sure they go out and clean it too if it becomes a bigger issue.
Also, Samuel Hurtado from Council President Kim Janey, Eleanor, thank you for your concerns and the other neighbors. We have been doing walkthroughs, so please use our office number 617-635-3510. And so we want to make sure we're addressing the current issues at the park, the parking lot. We've been working with the police and other officers because those are serious concerns. And as we move forward with this process, we want to make sure we are taking in consideration all these concerns so we minimize these issues in the future.
You're muted, Lauren.
Lauren, you're muted.
Samuel, can you give me that phone number one more time?
617-635-3510.
Okay. So I'm just putting in the chat for everyone who's here. I put in Counselor Janey's office number that Samuel just gave out, and also Christine's email address that she was asking to share. Also, we're going to go ahead and if I could have Farah and Elise, who have been moderating our Q&As, if they could go through those and maybe pass along the questions to those of us that can answer it, the ones that are in here. And if you have any additional questions, if you could either put the question into the Q&A or let us know that you'd like to ask the question yourself, we can do that and then mute you at that time. So Elise and Farah, can you sort of help us navigate those questions to answer?
Yes, definitely. So it looks like the first comment that we got from Lucas was just responded to by Samuel. He was just thanking Samuel and Counselor Janey for continuing to take proactive steps to ensure that the current residents of the neighborhood are able to remain in their homes and enjoy the benefits of this improvement process. And then it looks like the next comment we received was just a suggestion that chessboard tables would be a nice feature in the improvement scope, which we agree. That tends to be a pretty standard improvement across a lot of Boston Parks properties. The next thing we received was, is there consideration for a collaborative artist involvement in the process as the vision for its future is being forged? And I think that one can go to Mike.
Well, I think this one would also be something for Lauren to speak to. We always love to collaborate with artists, and I think there's plenty of opportunities here.
I think that one of the things that we would need to talk through, and certainly not trying to throw up a roadblock by any means, when we do public art, it's not the Parks Department that has the final say on that. It's actually the Arts Commission within the City of Boston. But if it's something that the community is interested in doing, we're absolutely always happy to start those conversations with the Arts Commission.
All right, moving on to the next question. Since the plan seems to not include any improvements to the athletic field, how can we ensure that it will at least be maintained properly? We run a youth program out there 20 weeks out of the year and find maintenance to be an issue. Lauren, could you speak to that?
Absolutely. So I personally 100% agree with you. When I was first assigned this project, because the fact that the field had repairs done recently, it was not originally put into the scope and the budget of the project. And the design team can let you know when we've done one of our many walks around the park together, the amount of motorized vehicles that go on the field doing damage and a lot of other things, as well as some of the issues that the person who put that comment in made. I personally feel like we do need to be doing some work on that field. One, to fix some of the damage that's been done. Also, getting down to the player area, it's not ADA accessible. So I think in addition to the field condition, there are just some other improvements that really we should be looking at when we're looking holistically at the park. I've brought this up to the Parks Commissioner, and we're looking at some potential additional funding options. We are looking at a federal grant right now that we're waiting to hear back whether or not we'll be getting some additional funding. But it is something that I, on my end, have brought up that I feel like we need to find the funds, whether it's through the grant or another avenue, in order to include more of that field in what we're doing now. And in terms of the maintenance, it's something that I know we have a new director of maintenance, and I know that field condition is something that he is working a lot with the crews on. And so hopefully between both of those things, we'll be able to see some improvement out there.
All right. It looks like we have one more question from Michael. He just noted to please take into consideration that vendors could use this setup breakdown space for festivals. I grew up using the park every season. I'm an architect born and raised 2 blocks away. And I think specifically for festivals, that's something that we're wanting to hear more about, so we can help support those with new park amenities. Not sure who to direct that to, if anyone wants to chime in.
Yeah, I think I know that in the city of Boston, whenever there are events like that, vendors need to get permits. So what I can do is internally start some conversations with our vending person in the office. Her name is Dottie Baxter, to see what what, if any, requests they've gotten, what they have had requests for in the past, and that can maybe help us to plan for that. But I think if there are comments from the community that say things like, in the past for events, there just haven't been enough vendors and we know vendors want to be there, that's really helpful to know. If there are comments like there are too many vendors, there's not enough space for people to use it, those types of thoughts are helpful to know. Also, if you feel like based on where vendors have been parking in the past, there are more ideal locations, anything like that, information is always helpful. So hopefully that helps answer those questions, and we can look into that and get back to you guys at our next meeting as well. Are there any other questions in there, Elise?
It doesn't look like it, but I think we do have a couple people who have raised their hands.
Okay.
I think Lucas has been waiting the longest.
Okay, Lucas, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you real quick, okay? Can you hear us, Lucas, and can we hear you, I guess is the better question.
Yes, hello?
There we go, perfect.
Hi, my name is Lucas Orwig. I live on Leslie Park, very near this park, and it's where we take our kids most frequently now that we have to, walk to find outdoor space. We do have a lot of like specific ideas. Maybe I'll put those in an email.
That'd be
my
great.
suggestion is kind of a process one. And I think it might be one of the ways to address, some of the issues that we observe of just that there's, broken glass all over the place. It seems like people kind of just throw beer bottles wherever. We're frequently doing 311s on needles and things like that. But, I love that the space is used by so many people, different ages for so many reasons. And I wonder if your team can find ways to help all of those groups of people feel real ownership over this process. So go out there to those folks that are congregating and having, a good time every day in the parking lot area, and talk to them about what they need so that they can have enjoy the park the way that they want to enjoy it, and also take care of it in the way that it needs to be taken care of. Talk to the folks that play basketball about what they need so that they don't need to take over the entire strip of MLK when there's so many people out there. What kind of space is necessary so that they can congregate in the way that they want to without, interrupting the flow of the space for everyone, or what are ways to get all the kids. My kids have all kinds of great ideas, we could do this, we could do that. Maybe there could be a kid-specific design session about the playground itself. I
love that idea.
The Hernandez, and they recently designed, the 8th graders led a process for them to design their new playground, and it really brought the community together. And I think if you can bring the community together that runs this, that uses this, then they'll feel like they own it and they'll take better care of it. And so, the next time you do one of these, maybe flip the script a little and listen first instead of talking for the first hour and 15 minutes, or go the more that you can go out into the community and talk to people. I appreciate the work you're doing, and I know it's hard to run one of these, but the more that you can, activate and really authentically engage the people that use the space, I think it'll feel more like it's ours and we can take better care of it.
Thank you. I think that's a great idea. And one of the things that I would love to hear is this is different, and it is, it's my first time doing an online meeting that for community presentation, and I would much rather be in the same room with all of you, being able to have a much more casual conversation about this. I know that myself and the design team, including Jean Bollinger, we were out earlier this week or last week putting up signs in the park and doing exactly what you were saying in terms of stopping and talking with the groups of people who are out there using it, all staying 6 feet apart with our masks on. But it was just fantastic to be able to just talk about the park in the park setting. And it's something I'm really missing with this format. So I'm glad to know I'm not the only one missing that. And having suggestions for how it could be more interactive and how to maybe bridge some of those gaps is very much welcome. So thank you for that.
Lauren, could I just add something to that? And I appreciate those comments very much, and I endorse what you're saying also. And when we have had the opportunity to be out there, and when we've had an opportunity to engage a couple people at a time within the limits of the social distancing advisories of the moment, people have been really generous in sharing their thoughts and their information. And I do think that maybe, in an informal way, there are opportunity to show up at the site on other occasions, sort of unannounced, and not in formal ways, and not exceeding the thresholds that we're not supposed to exceed, to gather some additional information on a going forward basis, and clearly to understand how people are using and enjoying the park. So I think given this moment in time and some of the limitations, it's going to be essential for us to spend more time doing that. And then, as you noted, if things are to change, reverting to some of the more traditional ways to interacting with some of the key user groups, absolutely, positively, that's what makes for a stronger design. And that's what allows us to develop elements that are in best support of all of these other types of uses that are taking place on the premises.
Thank you. And is there anybody else that has their hand up and wants to speak? Trying to look through and scroll through right now. Kim Miller. I'm going to go ahead and unmute Kim. Kim, are you there?
Yes, am I unmuted?
You are. Thank you for your patience.
This is different from Zoom.
It is, and
yes.
and that's actually something that we may be switching to a Zoom for future meetings. Which, you know, again, feel free to email me. I'd love people's opinions on what they feel like. This feels clunky to us,
Right.
but we also haven't been Zoom bombed on WebEx yet, so it's got its pluses and minuses.
Okay.
So
I did email you just now, but I had two question concerns.
Okay.
One is safety and one is parking.
Okay.
So in terms of parking, because I live right across from the swimming pool, so basically across from the park.
Right.
And parking is already an issue in the summer. Parking is a major issue.
Okay.
Because there's times when there's games that go on up there, and I mean, I'm just talking basketball. And so with all these other things that will be going on up there, I know just for when they're having the basketball game, sometimes it's double, it's triple parking. It's, you know, when you come in the evening, you can't find parking as a resident, as a homeowner.
Okay.
You cannot find parking. And so there's a lot of times you have to go, you know, either ride around a couple of times trying to find parking, or, I mean, it's really, really, that's really an issue. So I know with enhancement of the park and the new, you know, development and things that they're going to include, parking is going to be an issue. And so I don't know how they would even begin to address that.
Okay.
But I think that that's on the table as well.
So yeah, we'll absolutely take a look at that. And what we'll do is we'll try to come out at some of those times that you were talking about so we can see firsthand what that looks like. And we can also have conversations with BTD and, you know, a few other people just to try to understand how they're handling things as well. So obviously we can't, as a Parks Department, we can't police it, but we can certainly try to have a lot of conversations to move in the right direction to hopefully try to make some change with it.
Right. The other thing, sorry, that's my dog. Other thing is safety. And I don't know where that comes in, obviously, with BPD. But there's been issues up there in the past. And I know the ideas that are going on are great and so forth, but if there's going to continue to be issues with safety, I know there's been, in the past, there's been a couple of shootings or what have you, then you're going to find that parents aren't going to want to come up there and be able to enjoy the park. So that's something that should also be on the table.
Absolutely.
And seriously looked at. I know that somebody else, this is my third, I know that somebody else mentioned trash.
Yes.
That's a major issue.
Okay.
And like everybody else is saying, that I walk my dog, and so the barrels are empty. Like they're barely halfway full.
But
and
there's trash other places.
Yeah, and I personally would not want a trash barrel on my side of the street, because then that just creates rodents and other issues, you know, and then I don't want to have to be calling City Hall to come and empty the trash. That's just, no.
Right, try to figure out how to deal with it on our property.
I don't know how anybody else would feel, but I know that I had contacted the city before. I had talked about it a couple of times. I don't know if it's a petition. I don't know what would have to be done. But I know that in the past, I feel like the grass sidewalks in a lot of other towns, if you go to a lot of other towns, if you go to Wellesley, if you go to Newton, if you go to all these other, Brookline, these other towns, and you see that they have that walkway pavement, and then they have that grass, it's so well kept. We have weeds. We don't have grass.
Right.
And so I have to get out with a weed whacker in front of my door, and I have to call and fight to get somebody to come out. It's unpleasant to look at. And so my question would be that can be removed. I don't know how other tenants, homeowners would feel. I feel like it got to be moved and replaced with pavement, that maybe you would find that people aren't as apt to want to throw their trash for whatever reason, whatever their mindset is, as to why it feels okay to throw trash in grass versus trash on pavement. I don't know how anybody else feels about that, but I don't know if that's something that could be looked into or a petition. I don't know, but I just wanted to.
Are you talking about on the park side or on the adjacent side?
Well, I mean, I have no control over the park side. I have no control over my side.
Right.
But it was a suggestion. It was something that I thought might help in terms of beautification and in terms of trash.
I think it's
I
something
felt like
that we
the
can.
grass wasn't there.
Right. I think definitely we'll be looking into all sorts of different options for how we can try to help with the trash situation, because it definitely sounds like it's a major issue. So that's definitely something we can add to the pile of things we're going to look at for sure.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Let's see. Is there anyone else that's got their hand up that had a question, or anybody else that does have a question now?
Lauren, we had a couple other questions come in.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
One being is, are there any plans to include an off-leash dog area in the park?
I think that's a great question. It would be great to know from the community if they feel like that's something that they're interested in having.
I definitely would.
Okay, it's definitely. I'm going to go ahead really quickly on the attendees because I feel like we don't have that many of us left. I'm going to go through and try to unmute everybody so that we can have people respond to that. And if it gets to a point that there's too much feedback and I have to remute us all, and feel free to mute yourself if I unmute you, but this at least gives people the option to be able to speak. And again, if you want to mute yourselves, that's completely fine. I won't be offended.
Yeah, no, sir.
Okay, so I think part of the dog question, and it's something that comes up at all of our meetings, is that dogs are, you have people who are excited about dog areas, you have people that are not excited about dog areas. I have had a lot of comments about dogs and a dog park, off-leash dog area. So I think that that's something that we'd love to get people's opinions on, either here or once the meeting is over, emailing me or leaving me a voicemail to let me know, because that's something we'll take into consideration as we move forward.
Lauren, this is Kevin Hart.
Hi, Kevin.
I have no problem with dog ownership. However, my only concern would be that the owners clean up after their dogs.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yep, absolutely. I 100% agree. Are there any other, did anything else come in, Elise, on the Q&A?
There's just one last recommendation from Michael. He said it may be a good idea to research Summer Thing Boston, an entertainment flex space venue which could be accommodated in the park. It's an old reference to the 70s, but good to study.
Okay, thank you for that. While we have everybody and everybody is not muted, are there any other last comments that anybody has or questions?
Lauren, hi. This is Leah Christie again. Can you hear me?
Yes,
okay.
I can.
One of my suggestions would be, like, I'm a senior, and maybe having a walking track for seniors.
Okay.
Some kind of way to have a walking track for seniors. And also, I noticed, like, some type of exercise equipment. I noticed at the park that's on Humboldt and Townsend Street, they have some exercise equipment like that people can use. It's not a lot, but things that you can pull down, or just something to keep the seniors active when they walk the park. Just something.
Absolutely.
Yes. So something like that might be nice. Just a small area in the park where they might be able to do that.
Thank you. That's a good suggestion.
Okay. All right.
Hi, Lauren. This is Sarah, the person who questioned about the dogs.
Yes.
So I actually heard about this from a fellow dog owner while I was walking in the neighborhood. He was actually on the call earlier, but I think kind of the hope was just for something similar to what's in similar to like Rowan Park, which is like a very small enclosed area for dogs to be off leash so that they won't run into, other people who are enjoying the park, but very small area, but still allows dogs to be off leash. And usually those places have trash cans and stuff like that. So I'm happy to, obviously I'll reach out to you, but yeah, I actually found out about this because a couple of dog owners were like, oh, wow, this seems like a really great opportunity for us to see if this isn't a time where a small off-leash fenced-in area could be installed for dogs.
Okay. Thank you. I'm glad. It's good to know that people are talking about it in the community and talking about the meeting as well, which is fantastic. Thank you.
I have a thought to add about the dog park.
Yes.
So my name is Simone. I live in Roxbury. I'm not a pet owner, and I understand the need for people to need spaces to walk their dogs and for dogs to be off leash. I do think that there is an extremely strong culture at Malcolm X Park already, and that a dog park should be very, very, very well thought out so that there isn't conflict between a new dog park encroaching on the culture that already exists there.
Okay. That's good to know. We'll try to figure out how we can get in touch with the dog owners that are part of that current culture and see if we can understand thoughts and desires. Because you're right that we don't want to end up having a conflict there.
Well, I'm not actually talking about dog owner culture. I'm talking about sports and sports culture.
Okay.
There can definitely be some issue between someone's dog running off. The previous caller just mentioned having a closed-in area. I think that's really useful. But I don't think a dog park should impact the culture that already exists there.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
Hi, this is Eleanor. I have another thought.
Mm-hmm.
And not to say that I need any answers. I'll have to say that, when I received the invitation, I was ready for battle. Hate to say it, but it's true. Just around, like when you think of sports, you think of like interest as it relates to sometimes like race. And so when I think basketball, of course, I think, Black people. When I think of hockey or tennis, I'm not trying to be stereotypical. I'm just saying, we know, see more, tennis courts, if you see more, basically what I don't want is for use of the park by, young Black men who are interested in basketball and women, for it to be limited because there's more of something else that we know is not necessarily the interest of, a large number of Black people. You see what I'm saying? So what I really was trying to do was make sure this wasn't a way of kind of like, reducing, the number of participants in the community who are of a certain group. And having listened, I'll have to say I didn't have to approach the meeting in that way. But, I'm expressing it because I don't want it to come through some back door. I really do want this to be something that's really kind of like equitable, and
Absolutely. I'm glad that you expressed your concerns, and it's good to know that we sort of talked you off of that ledge of being concerned. Just so that you all know, it certainly is not our intention to come in and make massive sweeping changes. One of the things, if we weren't as obvious in the conversations, one of the things that's fantastic about this park is that on a whole, it really works. Like programmatically, it works. Like where the playground is, makes sense. Where the basketball courts are makes sense, and they're so heavily used with all of the tournaments and all the amazing programming that happens. When you're out in the park, you hear so many stories, people stopping you wanting to talk about, teams they've coached and the tournaments and what it means to them growing up. And that's certainly not something that we want to change. When we look at it, we say, the basketball courts, even their location makes sense. But what we want to know is, are they working for the uses that you guys need, right? Like, we know there are tournaments. Should there be bleachers? We know there are tournaments. What about, scoreboards? right now it's accessibility to it, right? Like, it's not that easy, and it's not accessible. So like if there wanted to be, if there were people who needed to do a wheelchair basketball game, could they get there? We see a lot of people coming from Martin Luther King that come into the court. And for all of you guys that are there, there's like an opening in the gate and then like a 6-foot drop into the court. And so a lot of things like safety and access and just making it be a state-of-the-art facility that it should be, that's our goal. It's not to take anything away, or especially not from such a heavily used program in the park. I hope that helps.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm glad to know that there are concerns and that hopefully we're squashing those.
Hi, Lauren.
Hi.
Hi, my name's Denier, and I'm from Roxbury Youth Soccer League.
Awesome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having this. And like I had said before, I know there's no plan for the lower field, but if you could really push for currently, if you could really push for that grant for the lower field, that would be amazing. We're not the only ones that use it. We're there, like I said, 20 weeks out of the year, but there's schools that use the space for both football and for soccer, and it would just be beneficial, I think, to a lot of kids or young people in the community, which benefits everybody, in my opinion. So even if you get equipment, like there's other fields in the city that have the tons of equipment sitting out there, and no one's worried about it, no one's thinking about it. But every time we ask the city about soccer goals that we would be, take responsibility for, chain them up, move them out of the way for the next group, we never get a response from anybody. So if they could just consider, like someone else said, making it equitable across the city, that would be great.
Absolutely. It was interesting when I first started at the Parks Department, which has been, I think, 9 years now, trying to remember. I remember working on street hockey court and putting in street hockey nets and having people say to me, oh, we don't put those in because people bring their own. And so I think there was this culture of concern of equipment being taken and damaged, and I kind of went, well, that's stupid. Nobody's going to haul that around. Like, we just need to provide that. That's like saying we're not going to give you a tennis net. Like, it just felt weird to me. So it's good to know that that request has been out there in the past. But typically on all of my projects, we put those in.
That's good to know, because Roxbury Soccer League definitely carries their nets around every Tuesday, Thursday for 2 weeks out of the year.
It's good to know that that request is out there.
I finally went to work in Austin since March.
Are there any other comments or questions that you guys have for us tonight?
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Marissa.
Oh, I think we're losing you a little bit. Is it possible to get a little bit closer to the speaker?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
That's much better.
Okay, thank you. My name is Marissa Luce, and I also live near the park. And so I did want to kind of echo, I think it's Lucas's, as well as Simone's and Eleanor's comments in terms of around park culture. Just because, we have seen in other parks in the city where the park culture has not been maintained, particularly at Carter Park. And so I think that it's important for us to make sure that we are not only, having conversations with like these, but also making sure that we're getting out there, because a lot of people are not participating or able to join these calls for a variety of different reasons, right? And so I think that it's important that we find ways of making sure that we're engaging them in making them a part of the conversation. Because in order to really address concerns around littering and being able to everyone having full buy-in from the buy-in into the park from not only just the use, but also the importance of maintaining and sustaining the space that is a community space. So I think that it's important for us to find ways of making sure that they're really a part of this this conversation and that the park culture is maintained because it's an institution. Like, you know, what's happening currently then has been happening for a very, very long time, right? And so we want to maintain. Yeah.
Absolutely. I do have a question if people are willing to pipe in and let me know. I've heard a lot about maintaining culture and maintaining a lot of uses that are currently in the park. Are there specific times of day, specific events we should be trying to make sure that we are in the park to view based on some of the important items that you guys have talked about? I know it might be a little different with quarantine and things maybe not working or maybe not being at full capacity.
Sundays and Saturdays are big days, but like you said, because of the social distancing, there's not been a lot of folks out there. I've seen more and more people showing up, but it's still not a lot at all.
Okay. Well, and with the playgrounds and splash pads opening back up this week, maybe there'll be even more out too.
Well, I'm speaking more of the basketball.
Okay. Okay.
I'm talking about the playground.
Okay.
With the playground, it tends to be around, I know during more like the afternoon, sometimes during the day, but more like I would say maybe 3 or 4. Tim, maybe you can speak on it. You're right across from the playground a little bit more than I am. No. I'll have to say that I see.
Out of parks.
It's hard for me to really determine with that one. I'll just have to say it's not like early in the morning or in the early afternoon. It's in the latter part.
Okay.
Always supposed to go 6 to 7:30 or 8.
So it's a long meeting. So it kind of makes sense.
So are there any other thoughts or comments that anybody has this evening? I appreciate all the time that everybody's been giving us, but I also want to be cognizant of everybody's time this evening. Wonderful. Well, thank you all again. I appreciate everybody that came, all the attendees, all of the panelists. Really appreciate the conversations and the patience while we're trying new methods of outreach. If I haven't said it enough before, please feel free to call, email. My email and phone number are on the screen for those of you on the phone. My number is 617-961-3019. And my email is Lauren, LAUREN, .Bryant, BRYANT, @boston.gov. And for those of you who are not on the video now, the project website is boston.gov/Malcolm-X-Park. And that'll take you to the website where the presentation will be posted and also the meeting minutes, as well as links again to my contact information. It will also have links to the survey, which again is in the 4 languages, English, Spanish, Haitian Creole, and Somali. So once again, thank you all so much for your time, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.